Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Frametrap Fridays. And
It's a very local edition.
yeah, me and Nason are actually just a few rooms away right now, and this time we're gonna do it as best as we can. We are actually at a Street Fighter hookup right now, and have actually guests downstairs. So excuse any kind of excess noise, but they're
The
usually
game, the game is so fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love the podcast, but the game is too fun.
yeah. I want to go downstairs and play really bad, but we got work to do, boy.
Gotta power through. However, will we make it?
Yeah. Okay. So the topics of this week are going to be pretty obvious. Those have been playing Street Fighter V for the past couple days. Of course, we had some issues with Street Fighter V. With the launch and the servers especially. Also, we're going to talk about Evo a little bit, and also, kind of some regulations that they changed this year. So you want to talk about Street Fighter V real quick? Just your thoughts on it, how much you like it. What do you like
Oh
about
my
Street Fighter?
gosh.
What's your favorite change in Street Fighter V?
So I started Street Fighter 4 a couple of years ago, pretty late in the cycle, and I played Ryu for most of the time because I wanted to learn the game itself. And I don't know, I felt really outclassed in Street Fighter 4, and I know that Street Fighter 5 is a more beginner-friendly game to begin with, but it finally feels like I can do the things I want to do. And I'm playing Laura now because aggression is the way to go, and Laura's the best. But I don't know, it feels so easy to get into. Even when you lose, you feel like you could have done everything differently. And I'm sure it was the exact same way in Street Fighter 4. That's probably just my mindset, but just the fast-paced nature of the game and just everything about it is just so fun. I can't pick one thing. It is just the best.
Yeah, and my favorite part about it for sure is I don't know. It just feels like the neutral is so much stronger. At the same time, the thing is, neutral on characters is stronger, but at the same time, their get in factor, if that's even a thing, is so much. Like anybody can just be in your face in just a matter of milliseconds. It's really cool to see that. Like Charlie's got the moonsault. You have the butt splash with Mika, and
Hmm.
you have Nakali's cross the screen little punch thing. No matter what, every character has a way to threaten you at any range on the screen. I think it's really cool. If you think about like Zangief in Street Fighter 4, if he was across the screen, you'd be like, well, it's Zangief. You can't really do a lot there. There's nothing you really could do except for just maybe randomly green hand. But in this game, you're like, oh my god, he could do this vacuum thing. He can jump air SPD. Like what the hell, man?
And
It's
the range on
crazy.
that is still ridiculous. They didn't change that from the beta, and it is still outrageous.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Well,
so, go ahead.
I was going to say one big thing that kind of surprised me is watching all the gameplay and the betas and everything. You're just like, crush counters are going to be brutal. You just can't. It's outrageous. You with a DP, you might as well give up the round. But what I've found is that crush counters, they're obviously useful, but they only add one or two hits to combos
Yeah,
or enable you to do a close up combo when you're about mid range.
yeah, and
Like a point blank one. But I don't think they're as crazy as people were trying to make them out to be.
yeah. People were like, "Man, dude, the damage is so high in Street Fighter Five, man. Oh, man, you do one combo, you're just dead in the water." Do you know? It's like, yeah, the damage is actually lower than Street Fighter Four, I'd say, on
Those people
average.
never played against an evil Ryu that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, because I think Street Fighter 5 has lower damage than Street Fighter 4, so that's something to keep in mind. You want to talk about the meta game, but overall, I think the damage needs to be upped a little bit because I think in the upper levels of play, I kind of had this issue a long time ago. Is that I feel like if you block well, this game actually takes a long time to kill you. Like I could definitely see timeouts or like really like 80, 90-second long rounds. Definitely, especially you can't die to chip. So, like, you have no health. You could sit there for 20, 30 seconds just, trying to whittle your opponent away. So, I mean, I think damage should be increased slightly, but nothing too crazy.
I haven't quite played enough to really make calls like that, but I can see that definitely being a change on certain characters at least, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I'm not saying like 35, 40%. I'm saying like, 10, maybe 15%. So, let's go and move on to the first topic of the day, if
Enough
you would.
dilly-dallying.
Enough dilly. We have the Street Fighter V release this week. Everybody has played Street Fighter V. You already know all about it, but they had some pretty significant server issues with the game. I remember my first day playing it was that Monday night. They
Hmm.
released it because they were originally supposed to release it, as we talked about on our podcast, that morning. But
9
instead,
a.m.
yeah, 9 a.m. But instead they released it that night. So it was released about 9 hours earlier than they originally anticipated, and you could tell it definitely they did not anticipate correctly.
Well, I think in Capcom's defense, 9 hours would not have increased the server capacity at all.
Yeah.
And again, people always underestimate their servers. Every Blizzard game on launch for
Yeah.
the history of mankind has always been overloaded that first week.
D3 won't be that popular, guys, right? Come on, man. Nobody even plays Diablo anymore. And then it's like dead for 4 days.
Exactly. And well, I think it's just a testament to how well everything Capcom did culminated to that moment, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I would be more worried if their servers worked, truthfully, because this means that people wanted to get in, people were trying out the stuff, they wanted to get right into matchmaking, they were excited about the game. I think that, like I said, that just proves Capcom's point that they wanted people to get into it, and they did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true. And the thing is about that is that, of course, I would like to see, people try to, more, be better about getting their games more proper on release. I'd like to see, better launches. But, I mean, at the same time, you do expect those kind of problems. And it was fixed relatively fast, but at the same time, almost the entire first full 24 hours is unplayable for many people. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter, but, I'd like to play the game on Tuesday. That'd be kind of cool.
And I'm reading through this article that you linked that I don't know how, we'll probably put it in the basement or something, but it's talking about a bunch of the problems with the release, and I can't help but notice a lot of them are PC problems.
Yeah.
Like, and that could be potentially some user error there as well, because it's no secret that not everybody's computer will run the same, regardless of even if you have the same specs half the time.
Yeah.
So it could have just been, people not having the game optimized or something like that, and then blaming Capcom for that as well. But like you said, the servers and things, that's entirely on them.
Yeah,
but,
and also onto the next topic in regards to the PC users, that man, they didn't seem to implement the PC version as well as a lot of people hoped. A lot of the in-depth graphic settings are missing from the game. Like, you just turn on anti-aliasing, like, you don't know if it's FXAA or TXAA or whatever it may be. And also, not to mention, it did not support, which is, I think this is an absolute sin, it did not support direct input. And direct input is what PS4 and PS3 controllers use. And the X input, which is what it currently supports, only supports Xbox 360 controllers. Now, it wouldn't be normally that bad, but the issue is that this game was released on PS4 and PC only. And so the thing is that people who bought a TE2 or whatever, they're like, okay, I bought the PS4 version, I'll get on my PC version. They hop on there, plug in their TE2 that they bought, and then it just doesn't work, because they don't support the same infrastructure that TE2s have.
And that is a hefty chunk of money to have for a piece of hardware that doesn't inherently work with something that was kind of marketed to work specifically with the game, you know? Like Arcade Stick's TE2, Mad Catz, we talked about all that last time, how they're not exactly doing the best, but at its core, they were kind of the go-to. You were like, all right, I'm going to get into the game. Mad Catz seems to be simple, will work for the rest of my life, blah, blah, blah. And to not be able to have the crossplay like that, especially because so much of the game is about crossplay between Steam and PS4, that I definitely agree that is a big, big, big sin.
Yeah, and
as
also,
far as the release goes.
And also, this is the first game to really support, I've played at least, that supports crossplay this efficiently. I mean, you just simply get into a match, and there's a 50% chance it's a PC player, as long as you have that option enabled. Of course, if you don't like that, you can also disable that option and only play PS4 or PC players, depending on which platform you're on. So,
one thing that I've heard from our community especially is the lack of a friends list, though, because when you're going to do that, it kind of seems like it's self-contained as far as Capcom's going, but you need to have some way to, add the people, and I don't know if it's just a way between the Steam API and the PS4 API not working together.
Yeah.
But I think that they should have some way at least to keep in contact with people, especially because a lot of people, the crossplay is a big defining feature, because some people don't have the high-end PCs or don't have the PS4s because they spent the money on the high-end PCs, and so playing with your friends that way would probably definitely be a big draw of the game.
Yeah, and the thing is that on that note, the Capcom Fighter ID is not available as a cross-platform option. Like, for example, if you bought the PS4 and PC version, you would think, oh yeah, I would sign up as Fire Team, for example, and if I get on my PC, it's like, oh, do you have already an existing Capcom Fighter ID? Log in here, and then you could log in with your existing Capcom ID. But it seems like people are just logging in with two separate Capcom IDs there, and they have like Fire Team and Fire Team PC, for example. I don't personally have that, but I mean, I do see that happen with a lot of people where they have like the original and then they have a PC or PS4 kind of tag added on to the end of that.
Well, I think some of the fun about that too, though, is like Mike Ross has a pretty defining, gamer tag. It's that Mike Ross guy, and somebody apparently took it before he could even get his hands on it in the game.
Yeah.
And stuff like that makes me laugh. But that is a prevalent problem because that kind of takes away a player's identity. Like once you get used to someone doing things like that, like let's just say somebody took Fire Team,
Yeah.
you would expect it to be you. And I noticed Justin Wong's been tweeting about it a lot lately, where he tries to get into matches with Chris G or someone like that, and it's just not even close to who it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's Chris G, and it's like, it's this some random guy from Sacramento that's having to
XX Chris G 420 XX
blaze it,
PC.
blaze it, PC, dude. But man, yeah, that's something to keep. I never thought about that. People would take other people's names, and the thing is, I haven't seen a way to change your fighter ID yet. So I mean, and also,
In the warning, when you make it, it says this is going to be for the lifetime of the game. Make sure you're absolutely sure.
man, that's crazy. I mean, I hope to see like there's some sort of fight money or Zenny option to try to change that, change that name. But
Well, we talked about this last podcast, how they're kind of almost going more towards the MOBA route of gameplay, and that is one of the most popular options in League of Legends that people will spend money on because it's available for in-game currency, the IP, as well as the out-of-game pay-to-win currency, the RP. And that's just one of those things that you get in the whimsical kind of mood, want to spend some money, and you're just like, I feel like changing my name today.
yeah.
So I would not be surprised at all if that they do exactly what you just said and implement it somehow in there.
Yeah, sure. And going on that PC release set, we talked about how they didn't have X input, or they only had X input available, which again, disabling really the PS4 controllers being used on it. And also we did see some bug fixes not being fixed. I posted on my Twitter about how overheads and jump-ins register as mid-level attacks, and also that the high-level attacks such as, mid-level attacks such as, let's say a standing medium punch or standing roundhouse or whatever it may be, those register actually as high attacks. So I kind of don't understand why that was not patched out. Also the boob jiggle, the very classic player 2 boob jiggle just randomly still happens. Like, I just don't understand how you're like, that's fine. It's probably just a few lines of code, especially since it's between the player 1 and player 2. But I mean, even if it's not, it definitely would seem like it's something they could actually patch out, before release day.
And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, like to me and you and everybody else that's in the community with us, that's nothing. We're just
Yeah.
like, we're going to keep playing the game, whatever. But to those people who are getting into Street Fighter with Street Fighter 5, the small things like that can really just dampen your overall experience with the game, It just makes it look unpolished and like they don't know what they're doing. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of people come in for a couple months and get turned off by all the little small hardships and not stick with it through when it finally hits what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, especially since a lot of the content's being released in March, as we talked about in the previous episode. You purchase a $60 game, you get it, it doesn't work. You're like, okay, I'll play the single player mode. Well, it doesn't work because you don't get the in-game currency unless you're connected to online servers. So you can't play the single player game modes and get what you want. You can't play multiplayer at all. So you just pretty much have a broken game on day one. And people that bought it and that are kind of casual players, they're like, oh yeah, let's see what we have. We have this online mode, we have survival mode, and then hey, there's no these have these really basic story modes. There's no campaign. There's no trial mode. Hey, I mean, I don't know how to combo with, lore, for example. Oh, I got to go, the trial mode. There's no trial mode. Like, I mean, it's just like for a new player, they have the very basic tutorial where it's like, this is how you jump. This is how you block. This is how you press a punch button. They had very basic stuff like that, but they didn't have anything like Skullgirl's tutorial, for example. Like, that was an amazing tutorial, taught you how to play the game, taught you the very core of the game. And then in this game, besides very basic functions, it doesn't teach you anything at all. And you have to hop right into the online or, computer simulated matches, and it just does not, have the same effect.
Can I deviate from the topic list a
Sure.
second here?
Yeah.
And just absolutely complain about how much I hate survival mode.
Yeah.
And not
I
even
do too.
because it's hard or anything, and I'm sure that people listening to this have heard it all over the place, but I feel like in Street Fighter 4, you earned colors and taunts by playing through matches and versus, or just playing matches anywhere, local, offline, online. It didn't matter, and you got them over time. And I think that was far and away the best way to do it,
Yeah.
because I understand the idea of wanting to reward players for going through the content, and probably kind of like nobody else is going to play it unless we do this. But I think that, especially because I'm sure you've heard that it's per costume only.
Yeah.
So if you got the pre-release and you're like, man, I love this new costume for Ryu, but I also love this original, you have to go through 90 matches for each costume.
Mm-hmm. And that's not even, isn't it 50, 30, 10, and then the 100, right?
Well, the 100 is
For a
health
title,
mode.
for the title.
It's for a title,
Yeah.
for fight money, exactly. But it's not necessary for the colors.
Yeah, so the colors, it's just, as you said, 90 matches, and it's per character. And so you definitely see that. I mean, that's pretty insane to think about how you have to go through that much stuff just to be able to get a couple. Like, because whenever we played Street Fighter 4 tournament or Street Fighter 5 tournament last night, you saw basic two colors for every single character except for maybe one or two, and on every station. Like I mean, my station the only one with the third Nash color and the third, and then I think the third Ryu color as well. And then another station was the only one with the third Rashid color. You know, it was like, man, like just to get one extra color on your station was insane. You're like, wow, I have a whole three colors to choose from. This is insane. Like obviously, any new copy of the game, you know, of any game, including Street Fighter 4, would have been, you know, not so great. But the thing is, if you simply played the game like that night, we would have had all 10 colors probably for most of the characters. So I don't understand.
Absolutely.
So I just don't understand why they didn't implement at least a little easier way of doing it.
Well, and even in Street Fighter 4, when you got the costumes, all 10 or 20 colors were already unlocked for you as well. And that just goes back. I'm really big in the fighting game community about having your own identity, and that just goes back to not letting people kind of express themselves again. You're stuck with either color 1 or color 2, and then even then, you know, that gets bland pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I picked the red Nash, and then we had Nikki pick the yellow Nash, and it's like, wow, that's how you tell the difference. If we had a third Nash player, well, then they had to copy one of us. I think Abby actually used the red Nash color most of the night, and Cody did too. So I was actually the one of the three red Nashes that night.
And there's nothing wrong with it inherently. It's just one of those things that just kind of bothers me at a nitpicky kind of level. Because, like I said, along with taking the pros' names and everything like that, it just is going to make it kind of boring to watch as far as getting into it goes. I'm going to watch it every time I possibly can. But, again, it's just that small stuff that's going to add up and really just kind of destroy the release for Capcom, I think.
Yeah,
if it's not already destroyed. Yeah.
For casual players. Again,
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
always have that core of, good players that put tons of time into the game and really make sure they try to be the highest level of competition. But, you talk about the guy that's like, I played Street Fighter 2 when I was a kid. I played at the arcade. Hey, I heard Street Fighter 5's coming out. And then they go pick it up and then, oh, wow, wait, I can't even play it. What's this? Oh, man, why is there only two colors? I got to play 90 matches to do this? Man, I don't know, man. I can't do this.
This might be a bad example, but a couple coworkers of mine at work, they come up to me, they're like, hey, you play Street Fighter, right? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. They're like, is that stretchy arm guy still in there? I'm like, yeah, Dalsum's totally in there, man. And I'm trying to, just kind of ease them into it, just get people to play the game that I think is fun, but I wouldn't blame them if they didn't stay after all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, especially the poor release, lack of content, and certain things that just really didn't make any sense. I think I heard a quote that really, really resounded with me, and it was, everything that Combo Fiend did not do for this game doesn't make any sense.
That is a pretty good quote.
So it's like, oh yeah, the gameplay, great. And then it's like the entire rest of the game, it's like, what are you thinking, Capcom? Like, honestly, what's going on here? No endless battles, no campaign. Very basic story mode on easy difficulty that gives you the critical art meter full. The survival mode that you take 50 matches to get to, that you play 45 matches of very easy bots, and then the last 5 are actually hard, and you'll probably lose for some.
That exactly happened to me. I got to round 30 with Laura, and then lost to Bison because I thought it was going to be just as easy.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, by the way, they're hard now, and so you wasted all that 40 minutes or whatever just playing dumb bots, and then at the end it's like, oh yeah, by the way, this game's actually kind of hard. And then they just destroy you. And you're like, well, gotta do it again. That was fun. And then that's for not only one. Like if it was for each character, or if there's one character and you lock all the colors in that tier, that'd be like, oh yeah, I play with Laura. I got the third Ryu color, third Nash color, third whatever color. But then instead it's like, oh, by the way, if you want to get the third Ryu color, you have to go in and go do that with Ryu, and then do that with Nash, and then whatever. And you have to do that 15 times or whatever. That's way too much for anybody to do.
That just sounds overwhelming now, honestly.
And we already talked about the kind of raised cost of entry when it comes to tournament organizers, and that's just another thing. Like, oh yeah, I mean, if I want to have cool colors for my participants, I got to play 20 hours of survival mode. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the time commitment and time cost is something that I didn't even think about because, I was so focused on the hardware aspect. But yeah, that's just so much. You can't expect people to do that, That's just outrageous.
It is, absolutely. Especially if you're not even good at the game. Like, again, we talk about the casual players that are like, oh yeah, dude, I played Street Fighter 2 when I was a kid. And then they go in this, like, oh man, I can get third color if I play on hard mode. Man, I'll try this out. And then they go in there, they lose like the 28th match. It's not even hard yet, but they just lose because they're not good. I mean, that's fine. They're learning. But the thing is, then they'll lose, and they're like, oh, I can't get the third color. I don't know, man. I give up. And then they go online, they get wrecked too, and they're like, man, I can't even play online. I can't play survival mode. There's no story mode. I could play I can't really do anything. I feel like I'm just kind of getting wrecked no matter what I do. And then they just leave. That's kind of how I feel, at least.
Well, while we're on the topic of casuals and tournaments as well, let's take a moment to talk about how the DualShock 4s are just
Yeah.
not great for this game at
Well,
all.
first we'll talk about the Evo because the
Mhm.
Evo is allowing the DualShock 4 this year, and I mean, without going into the second topic yet, there's a ton of issues with wireless controllers in general. At KIT, little side story here. At KIT, we had a setup, right, and this is the Ultra Street Fighter 4, and they had a setup, right? And there were two people playing, and then they just stopped, and then they paused randomly. Like, okay, what's going on over here? And they said, by the way, and then one of the guys raised a hand for a TO. He's like, dude, somebody else is controlling our game. Like somebody else was controlling my character, and he's like, "What? Like, dude, there's somebody controlling my character." And he's like, and he looked on the Xbox, and it had three rings lit up. So he's like, "Oh snap! There's three people in this Xbox." So he has like, so he's on the the megaphone. He's like, "Hey guys, where's the who left their wireless controller on station 3? You have to desync your controller." So probably what happened was it's not malicious or anything. Probably what happened was some guy, he was playing on his little pad. He's a casual player. He doesn't understand he has to desync your controller, and it's easier on Xbox 360. I might add. You just simply disconnect your batteries or turn off the controller in the in-game menu, and it's done. And he just put it in his bag, and then like while I was walking around with his backpack, he was controlling the match inadvertently,
Oh
probably.
my gosh.
And so then I think that's like those kind of issues really come into play when it comes to wireless controllers, and especially since Street Fighter 5 again more casual friendly, more newer players that will not have fight sticks. I definitely see that coming into play a little bit more often than you expect.
I just right underneath, two lines underneath on the Evo rules, it says Xbox One wireless controllers are allowed to be used only wired.
Hmm.
And that just, I don't know, man. That seems really just backwards.
Yeah.
No, you can't use certain types of converters because of, different lag types and everything as well. But that just is outrageous to me.
Yeah, it says DualShock players do not disconnect their controller after a match or are considered disqualification. But I mean, it's hard to make sure you do that every time. It really is. It's hard.
I mean, even at our, little monthlies, everything, there's like maybe, 100 people maximum, like ever. That would even be pushing it. Like, it's still a nightmare.
Yeah. And then that as a TO is something else you have to keep in mind, and that's just an issue you have to put in there with all the other things as a TO you have to deal with. And then on the second topic, which I think is even bigger, it's not really actually about the DualShock 4 lagging. It just talks about the different lag times for each kind of fight stick. Like it says that the TE2, for example, actually has a 5 millisecond lag time, which is actually significantly more than other options. Like for example, did you know that the PS360 Plus actually has about 3 times less lag time than the Mad Catz TE2? Like that's something I didn't know.
Boy Rap 4 here says 15.10.
Oh my god, that is insane!
I am terrified to use my stick now.
Wow.
Well, just really quick before we even get into that, like just jumping right back to the Evo thing real fast. You
Yeah.
got to remember, I went to my first Evo last year, and I was surprised that you had volunteers running per little group of stations, right?
Yeah.
You can't have volunteers like that making decisions like that in a tournament like Evo.
Mhm.
That is just, I feel like that is an absolute travesty and a no-no. You're going to have all those volunteer judges report to a higher judge, and then if something goes wrong there, then they're going to have to come through. It's just going to be
Yeah.
a logistical nightmare.
And a lot of those guys aren't even good TOs. Like, I mean, they tried their best, they tried their hardest, but at the end of the day, they're just there to, have fun and get an Evo T-shirt. So, like, if you're not you're not experienced TO, and you're like, oh man, there's a guy with the DS4 that's somehow connected. Like, what do I do? Who do I find him? Like, it's just such a crazy little nightmare to add on to the fact that they're already doing something they're not used to doing.
I'm going to call out our good friend Robbie Vota. He volunteered last year, not only for Street Fighter, but from Mortal Kombat as well. And someone was using Jason all the way through pools, and it didn't get brought up until the last match. Somebody was like, can he do that? And Robbie Vota is not an MKX player, and he just didn't know the answer. He had to go ask someone else. But just the small stuff, and you have to worry about that. You can't worry about the hardware. Ugh.
Yeah, breaking up a little bit over there, Mason. I don't know. I think maybe the.
Sorry, I leaned back a little bit.
Oh yeah, sweet. Okay, so let's go and move on to the Evo topic. So there's a little paragraph here. I'll go and read it to you verbatim. It's actually super scary. The Sony DualShock 4 performs worse when other DualShock 4s are connected nearby, causing interference. For each additional DualShock 4 activated on the PS4, delay or anywhere nearby as well. This is not just including the one it activated on that PS4. This is all the PS4s around the area. delay increases by about 4 milliseconds, and inputs can become delayed by 2 or more frames or drop altogether. Inputs also drop when the console is not in direct line of sight to the pad, not recommended for pad hacking and blah blah blah. But man, it's just that's insane. Like you could just like of course Evo last year especially was super cramped. I mean you had people shoulder to shoulder the entire time. And then you talk about how, oh by the way, for each DS4 connected near each other, you're gonna have some extra lag. And then like when you have 2,000 entrants in a game and then let's say 10% of them use pads, you have 200 pad players just right there next to each other, just trying to, like even if you had 3 or 4 pads next to each other at once, like that's within a station pool, then you can be talking about some 12 to 16 millisecond lag, which is some pretty significant lag, especially since it's not consistent. It differs depending on how many DS4s you have around each other.
Well, and I think one of the things that contributes to this too is it's so hard to turn off a PS4 controller for no reason.
Yeah.
Like if you ever held a 360 controller, it's got the battery pack in the back. You just pop that out if you need to turn it off real quick. But you have to go into the menus and everything for the DS4s. So even if you wanted to try and do that every time, that just adds more unnecessary time and work for the TOs to go through too.
Yeah.
But that is, I mean, it's no secret Street Fighter V is not as technically difficult as Street Fighter 4. Like there's a 2-frame buffer, 3-frame buffer, everything like that. But the delay is still going to be noticeable. If you're used to a certain type of thing and all of a sudden it switches enough in a tournament like that, like it's going to be aggravating and you're going to notice it because you're going to be already in that heightened sense of kind of competition, kind of like I'm at Evo, this is the big leagues. That's just outrageous. Yeah. There's really no other words for it. Like just the things like that, the small thing, that's not even a small thing, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, this is one of the first years they've actually allowed wireless pads for a pretty mainstream game. Of course, MKX I think allowed PS4 pads last year, but I mean that's not going to be nearly as big as Street Fighter V is going to be this year. Like you're talking we're going to talk about 2,000 entrants probably. Is that how many we had in Street Fighter 4? It was pretty insane. We had that many entrants, and I imagine we're going to have even more for Street Fighter V. So, I mean, I definitely see a ton of pads just, with an insane amount of just a lot of people with the same amount of pads and just apparently interfering with each other and allowing them to have even up to. I mean, even if you just talk about the input delay, that's an issue. But it says or drop inputs altogether. Like that's just unacceptable. Can you imagine like you're in a match and you land a crush counter and then your dash doesn't come out for the sake of, oh, by the way, there's 3 other people with double shock 4s around here, so therefore your input didn't come out. Like that's just it's got to be horrible for a casual player. Or I mean anybody that uses that uses a DualShock 4 as their main. I mean, or I guess Smug gonna be using DualShock 4. Shouts to that guy.
Well, since we're harping on Evo anyway, let's go to the topic that I wanted to add. It's that Evo floor seats. Evo registration opened up last night at 7 p.m. For those of you who don't know, that's Central Time. So 7 p.m. Central will be 9 p.m. Pacific, whatever. But it registered, and then you could buy the seats for Sunday's finals because it's a separate thing in the Mandalay Bay Arena now. And the floor seats were sold out almost immediately.
Yeah, it was definitely bots that really did a lot of the buying. You could tell because it was just insane how fast those went.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And you notice this a lot more with concerts, but now that it's affecting something that I actually want to go to and do, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, really? Because the general admission tickets were about $66 after all the fees, because, why not? You're buying electronic tickets, there's 100 fees. But
yeah.
People are going to be charging outrageous amounts for those floor seats, and people are going to do it,
Yeah.
Somebody comes in with their Smash kid and is like, hey, mommy, I want to sit in the middle row. Not that all Smash players are children, but, they're going to shell out that money, and it just feels weird to me that Evo would allow that to happen. I guess they didn't really have a whole lot of control over it because they went through this company called AXS as a kind of a third-party alternative, but it just another thing that's unacceptable, and as a to go there, I feel obligated to gripe about the things that deserve to be griped about. But it's just another one of those things, just another minor annoyance, and eventually they start to add up.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is that, talking about that topic, it's just like they were sold out. And the thing is, it wasn't like they went on sale right when Evil Mr. Wizard said they were going to go on sale. It seemed like oh, it's going to go on sale now, then didn't happen, or is early or something. Apparently it did not happen on time with how people thought they were going to be released at. So, a lot of people that, were expecting a certain time, it didn't happen at that time, and then, they tried to go in there and get their tickets, and for some reason it didn't work out. So that's something to keep in mind, too, that even the original time was changed, it seemed, or the original, the release date versus the time they originally posted definitely did change.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just those small minor things just keep adding up, it seems like. And of course, we're all going to go to Evo if we can and all that jazz and still enjoy it, but it's not as optimal as it could be.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to the PC version real quick. We kind of glossed over one of the articles. Again, we talked about the poor release feature set, but I also want to talk about the glitch that is happening in this, which is actually pretty significant. It seems like there's a glitch right now where, okay, so if you didn't know, cross-platform play right now has a little bit of an issue right now. It seems like PC lags in comparison to the Street Fighter, in comparison to PS4, and I'm assuming that's because of the PSN authentication servers. Like, usually PS4s don't have any traffic outside of their own servers, and so the thing is, when they have to connect to PCs, they have some issues because they're just not used to dealing with non-PS4s. So then you usually get a little bit of input lag, when it comes to being on the other side of that. And so usually when a PC player plays a Street Fighter 4 player or a PS4 player, usually the PS4 player will appear to be teleporting around, and that's because of the rollback implemented in Street Fighter 5. The thing is that PC players right now can tab out of the game. And then the thing is, whenever you do tab out, it will stop the rollback, and you're like, oh, that's fine. It makes the game more playable. But the thing is that it also changes the elements of your connection to the PS4 player. What it actually does is it makes you lag a little bit in comparison to them. So then you will start to roll back on their screen. So it seems like it's an instant way to flip this. Like, it's already bad enough that PC players have to deal with lagging PS4 players. Again, I would recommend not doing cross-platform play right now. But the thing is also, if you are a PC player and you do get matched up with one, you can actually change things in your favor and just simply do this tab out method and start to make them lag for you.
I've always thought rollback was one of the weirdest ways to handle lag in a fighting game because they're one of the most technically intensive games as far as they can go, and it comes down to milliseconds of pressing buttons, and so the fact that they do rollback has always just surprised me. But
yeah, especially since whenever you're in neutral and then they're like, you're sitting there like this, and then all of a sudden they're here, like they're just like there's no teleport, like they just teleport to there, and it's like they're already jumping, like it's like, oh, you're supposed to anti-air, dude. It's like, dude, he was already in the air by the time I even got to see it, in neutral, like when you're walking back and forth. And all of a sudden, instead of being like this, it's just teleport back and forth because it doesn't handle the back and forth motions too well.
Well, it's kind of aggravating too that it's so simple for PC players to do this, or even accidentally. Let's say you're just messing around, you accidentally hit the Windows key or something, and you accidentally go out of the game, and you have to come back, and then you make the experience worse for the other person. Inadvertently, but it's still there, and
yeah.
Yeah, I just think, you always hear the horror stories about lag switches and stuff. I guess it's going to be tab switches now.
Always get the tab switch, bro. Do you tab switch? He's tab switching, dude. Man, he's tab switching. But
the reviews of Street Fighter 5 right now at Steam are admittedly less than great.
Yeah.
I don't want to bash the game too hard there, but that just goes to show that everything we've been saying about the casual player base and how it's just really inaccessible and not worth it to them is really going.
Yeah, here, I'm going to go ahead and lay this over here. Here's the Steam. I haven't actually seen it yet, so this is going to be totally a surprise to me. I'm going to go and type in Street Fighter 5 here, go and search it. Mixed is the official term, and it is a 42% positive rate. 58% of the people decided this game is not acceptable.
I have purposely searched for bad indie games and found ones with higher scores than that.
Look at this. This is okay, let's see. Let's count. The helpful reviews. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I gotta load more. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, God.
Next time on Sesame Street, we'll teach you how to count to the letter M.
Dude, there is a series. Oh my God, dude. On the helpful reviews, I've gone through probably about 30 reviews. I've not seen a single positive one.
With 42%, that's
wow.
To be accepted.
First one is about the 40th review. The first positive review.
That's crazy. But that's also good. I think that is exactly the kind of thing that people need to do. I
agree.
If you don't like a game, even though you can love it, if you don't like certain aspects of it, it's important to make yourself known in that regard. Otherwise, nothing is ever going to change.
Yeah. And that's something to keep in mind, man. That's again, we talked about the poor release, and it wasn't always this. It wasn't only the server issues that was the issue here, but also the poor PC release that really made it. Of course, the PC release is also super demanding. The base spec it recommends is a 970.
Jeez Louise.
I mean, that's about
For non-tech people.
or 960. Excuse me. That changes things a lot, actually. 960. It's about $200 graphics card, but it recommends a 960. So it's like that's a pretty insane, kind of spec to expect somebody to run. Yeah, the system requirements is a 480, but it really doesn't run a 60 FPS and well until you get to like a 960.
I did see a Reddit post. Somebody got Street Fighter V running on a tablet.
Yeah, they got
So
the Surface Pro 3, I think.
Surface Pro. I didn't want to say the wrong one and look stupid. So
Yeah, I think it was Surface Pro 2 or 3. No, that's pretty funny though to see that running a Street Fighter 5. It is the thing is I think it's kind of like Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 is a little kind of graphically intense when it first came out, but then whenever people's rigs, cause especially since when you play a game for 7 years, it's kind of obvious that the technology gets better and the game never gets any more taxing. So, and of course, drivers actually released over the course of the years really do make things, a little bit better for those graphics cards. I remember watching a Linus Tech Tips video where a graphics card got like I think it was like 20% better performance by simply getting better drivers. That's all it did, just over the course of its lifetime.
And I guess that's the overarching theme for our podcast today on Frametrap Friday, second edition, is small things can make a big difference, Small optimizations can just make the game that much more playable or that much worse.
Yeah, and especially the 58% of people think that Street Fighter V is not worth their money.
Well, maybe not worth. Well, you have to understand, too, as far as PC players go, Steam is going to be the largest platform for it, but so many people have gotten, good old games, stuff like that, off-brand CD keys, for lack of a better term, that I imagine there's a lot of people who got them through there. And the people who really want the game, they obviously are probably going to get it any way possible. But I wouldn't be surprised if a majority of them went somewhere cheaper because they knew something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely saw G2A, CD Key House, stuff like the kind of gray market. But also, we had some pretty good sales to start with. I think it was $48 on Green Man Gaming and GOG, which, of course, those are more legitimate sites. One of them is DRM free and the other one's run and CG Product Red. So, I mean, you do see the more legitimate sites running some sales as well.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the whole gray market thing because my laptop cannot run very many games at all. So,
yeah. You have anything else to add? I think that's really all the topic
I do have one more thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about your thoughts on Daigo versus Lupe Fiasco.
Oh, I mean, I think it's just... it's really cookie cutter for me. Whenever it really shows, because of course I saw a good analogy to this where a tennis player in a tennis show match will usually go and they'll play a couple sets and make it look good, and then they'll kind of slowly come back and oh yeah, by the way, I'm actually really good at tennis. And I think that's what Daigo is trying to do. I don't think he thought it was supposed to be 5, because obviously at the end of the set he was like 5, 3, good games, man. Whatever. You could tell he didn't know it was supposed to be 3 games, and then so he was super surprised when that happened. So I think he was like, "Oh, I'll let Lupe win a couple. Try to have some fun. Show that this is not all." And then I'll kind of start to come back and show a little bit of stuff here and there. But I think he was going for more of a kind of a fun thing. And of course, if you have Lupe Fiasco, it's like the headline like, "Oh, Street Fighter Pro barely beats Lupe Fiasco" or something. It's like, "Oh wow, dude, Lupe Fiasco could play Street Fighter 5. I can too." And then that kind of thing can really boost a game's morale. But
well, that's exactly why I brought it up, is because I work with an older crowd, usually my coworkers. But one of the first things they brought up to me a couple days ago was, did you know that Lupe Fiasco is one of the best Street Fighter players in the world?
Oh my god.
And no, I mean,
yeah.
Look, as inherently wrong as that is, they're talking about the game. These are people who would have never even considered Street Fighter V on their radar. But with a certain twist of the headlines and stuff like that, that kind of marketing showmanship, it's on people's tongues, for better or for worse.
Oh, did you know that Street Fighter 5 professional Street Fighter player that got beat by a rapper that picked up the game for a couple weeks? Man, it's like...
Well, and so many headlines are Lupe Fiasco, best Street Fighter 5 player in the world, which technically not wrong because of the power rankings. But like I said, man, I mean, Lupe Fiasco is... in his following, as far as I'm aware, it's probably a pretty different subset of people.
And much larger, I might add. And much larger. I think he has 10 million followers on Twitter.
That's an outstanding number. That's Oh, I don't even want to think about the math on that. But that's my point. Is I'm trying to be an advocate here for just the people in general and casuals in Street Fighter V. Because as much as I love it personally on a technical level, I think it's important to see the other side of the issue too. And so that's why so many things that I bring up are kind of in a broader sense. But I think that that was probably one of the smartest things they could have done. And even if Daigo had won or had through the game or whatever, at the end of the day, it it was good fun to watch. You know, like wrestling. No offense to any wrestlers out there. I know you guys are listening, but you know, it's not exactly the most surreal thing. But at the end, it's so much fun to watch. You can't help but get into it. And I felt the same way about the Lupe Fiasco match, even though I knew Daigo was technically a better player. It was just hard not to get in there and root
Yeah.
for the underdog.
Yeah, and the thing is I think he has actually, I will correct myself, 1.36 million followers on Twitter.
Okay, I was gonna say 10 million is
And then in comparison to Daigo, let's see, Daigo Umahara here. Let's see, he has 55K.
okay. So yeah, almost triple.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. But yeah, that was just all I wanted to bring up is how what you thought of it and if it was a good thing or a bad thing because I think it was a super good thing for the game.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely, whenever you say, like, rapper beats that guy, and you're like, wow, dude, I know Lupe Fiasco. That guy's really cool. And then, like, wow, I want to trade the Street Fighter 5 game. And then they buy it and, they try it out.
And I could sit here and bash clickbait articles for the next 4 hours of your life if you really wanted me to, but I think that Facebook shares and clickhole.com or whatever you want to call it or whatnot. I mean that's the real thing, but I think that publicity is publicity, and that kind of stuff. Those kind of people who read it that way. I mean, even if the game is buggy on release, they're not going to notice.
Yeah.
Like usually when we were talking about the buggy release, we're talking about gamers getting into Street Fighter V, but people who don't have
game.
really any experience at all going into it, they're going to be like, what? Oh, I didn't know there were even other colors. Oh, I didn't know that she was jiggling too much or something. It's like,
Yeah.
I wasn't even, yeah, who cares? My friend's sweep is broken. You can't, I mean, it's dumb, and stuff like that.
Dude, throws are broken, dude.
Those are broken throwbacks. But no, I just think that I think that was a good move, and I think it was overall just good for the life of the game. I think it was really well handled by everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, going on the topic of the popularity of the game, I think Wednesday night fights had a 256 man bracket the first night.
Yeah, I think that's as many as they could do, right?
All right.
Like
I can't
that
remember-
seems like a pretty solid number to
I
end
can't
at.
remember if it was Wednesday night fights or an LBC, but
was Wednesday nights.
it was Wednesday night fights. Yeah, that's insane. Like that is, I mean, that's actually not that much to consider the per capita amount of people, but like,
No, it definitely. I mean, you're underplaying it a little bit, but that is a crazy amount of people to get somewhere, pay money, and do one thing.
on a weekly night,
Yeah,
on a
exactly.
Wednesday night, like that's nuts. Like, can you imagine, you go from work and you're like, I want to play Street Fighter 5. Do you go to your 256 man bracket, dude? Man, that is insanity. We had a 33 man bracket last night at Top in the Shop. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, those were the. It reminds me of the good old days of Oak Grove stuff, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, 33 men in Street Fighter 5 at one tournament and a random at Thursday nights. That's so sick, dude. I'm so happy.
But yeah. Oh, I mean, I was just gonna wrap it up and
Yeah,
say that
go ahead.
I didn't really have much else to say. And Street Fighter V is a great game, and even though it's plagued at release, I'm excited to see where Capcom goes. And maybe when March rolls around, we'll be biting our tongues a little bit harder and taking back everything we said.
Yeah, that's what I hope to. That's what I hope to do. I really hope by March I'll be like, yeah, dude, this game's sick. This game is really polished. The gameplay finally is now matched by the quality of the overall game. Casual players can hop in and have a fun time, and I see no reason why everybody should not buy this game because it's super fun, tons of content, that kind of thing. I want to say that so bad. I really do. I want to say that everybody and their grandma should pick up Street Fighter 5. But unless if you're a good, really good Street Fighter player, or you're interested in Street Fighter, I really would say kind of shy away. Like Total Biscuit in his port report actually said for people to shy away from Street Fighter 5, and I don't disagree with him. I think that it's not a great release, and as WTF is going to come out pretty soon, but. As a PC player, I would not pick this game up if I did not play. Actually, I do not own the PC version.
Actually, I'm a huge proponent of doing what you love and sticking with it. But I would agree with you. I think that I would not have picked it up on PC at release either if I didn't have you guys to play with or anything like that, or even PS4 because of the servers being down.
Yeah, I mean the PS4 version is pretty fine. I mean, I picked it up. The server issues were dumb. If you picked it up after Wednesday, you're fine. Like it's a great game. But the thing is, like for the PC version, it's still played with a couple of issues, and definitely would like to see those get fixed up so then everybody can enjoy this game like we do.
All right. Well, I can't think of anything else I want to add.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be all for tonight, guys. Thank you all for watching the second episode of Frametrap Fridays with your
Hey, real
hosts.
quick,
Yeah.
shout outs to Chris Cunningham for watching the first one.
Yeah,
and giving me
shout
help
out to everybody that watched the first one, and shout out to everybody that watches this one too. You can follow us at our Twitters down there below us right there, XCR Fire Team or Mason Godding.
Oh, and I promise it's only going to get better. You may notice that I'm not at 2 frames a second in sepia tone from 1920 anymore. And as long as we're going to keep doing this, we're going to keep continuing the quality. Our topics are going to get better. Maybe even have a couple guests. People have already expressed interest. So keep with it. Look forward to all that stuff in the future. Frametrap Fridays is not going anywhere.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And until then, farewell.